Everyone. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to jump back into Dark Life. Oh my gosh, things were getting very, very intense. It almost feels like we're to the climax. Like you can feel the suspense ramping up and ramping up. They were going to hang Shade, Ty cut him loose. Then all of a sudden, their attention shifted from Shade to Doc because Shade had told everyone that um, Shade said that Doc had done all these experiments on them, and so they started questioning Doc. He seems to be trying to escape, and Gemma was trying to stop him. The others continued their. Let me see. Hold on. Back up. Um, Scrambling onto the top catwalk, Gemma paused for a split second to look down. I knew how she felt about heights, and yet her fear didn't stop her. The whole structure of catwalks swayed as she ran for the elevator, and I nearly cheered out loud. Hand outstretched, she flung herself toward the call button, but Doc stepped out long enough to seize her by the wrist and drag her into the elevator with him. No! I shouted, but the doors slid shut, with Gemma trapped inside. The others continued their ascent, but I didn't join them. They'd have to wait for the elevator to return before they could take it down to the access deck, and I was sure that's where Doc was headed, is to escape in a sub. I felt Shade's gaze on me. Know a faster way? Service duct. I pointed at the hatch in the center of the elevator shaft. When he bolted for the hatch and slammed the button to open it, I followed right behind. As I climbed down the ladder inside the narrow duct, I heard him kick open the hatch at the bottom and clamber out. A moment later, I too emerged on the access deck and saw that someone had jammed a manta board between the elevator doors so that they couldn't close. Across the wet room, Doc held a spear gun while gripping Gemma's arm as if his life depended on it. Take another step, Doc warned Shade, and she goes in. Next to them, a mini sub floated in the enormous moon pool. Think I won't follow you? Shade asked softly. This is the last sub, Doc replied, training the spear gun on him. Circling in place, I saw that it was true. The vehicle hold was empty. And this is the last of the liquigen. Doc jerked his head toward the empty slots in the wall, shoving Gemma down the ladder onto the moon pool's submerged ledge. He took the liquigen pack from under his arm and punctured it with the harpoon loaded in his gun. With a hiss, foam bubbled out. He flung the pack into the moon pool where it floated, sputtering out its contents. Before I go, let's get one thing straight, he said, glaring at Shade. Living Subsea messed up your brain, not me. I just tried to figure out why. Left no stone unturned, Shade agreed. Must have really burned you up after being so thorough to get turned into the wealth's scapegoat, called a fraud. Ignoring him, Doc tossed aside the sub's hitching line. Shouldn't have written that article, Doc. Shade chided mockingly. You know you can't buck the wealth. He must have hit a raw spot because Doc shot him a hostile look. Everything in that article was true, but you couldn't prove it. Shade's tattoos writhed across his back like Medusa's snakes. Not after your evidence escaped. Get in! Doc shoved Gemma onto the mini-sub's bumper. Arms windmilling, she caught her balance, then scampered up the hull and shimmied into the open hatch. That why you came back to Benthic territory? To collect new evidence? Shade pointed at me. Show the world you were right? My fingers grew numb as all the blood in my body went toward fueling my brain so that I could comprehend Shade's words. I was the reason Doc came subsea, so he could prove his theory about dark gifts. I'm not an orphan, I sputtered. My parents wouldn't let anyone use me like that. Maybe they wouldn't have had a say, Shade speculated. How are you going to get around them, Doc? Bet you had a plan. The numb feeling climbed my limbs and nearly stopped my heart. Is that why you called my parents negligent today? I demanded. So you could take them to court and have them declared unfit? Doc's gaze jumped to me for only a second, but I saw a world of guilt in his glance. Shade must have caught it too, because he snorted with contempt. Don't take it personally, kid. Doc's got a reputation to restore. Shut up, Doc snarled, keeping the spear gun trained on Shade. He leapt onto the mini sub's bumper, only to have it bobble under his feet. Through the sub's viewport, I spotted Gemma studying the control panel with a determined expression. She shoved the joystick forward and the sub took off, sinking as it went. The sudden propulsion sent Doc tumbling backwards, and with a thunderous splash, he hit the water. As he floundered, the mini sub banged into the far side of the moon pool, and I ran the length of the room to help her. But Gemma didn't seem to need any help. She stood on her seat and hoisted herself out of the hatch as seawater poured in around her, filling the cockpit. Just as the sub sank beneath the surface, Gemma leapt from the rim of the hatch onto the submerged ledge. I got there in time to offer her a hand up to the wet room floor, and then heard a splash behind me. Turning, I saw Shade skid along the submerged ledge towards Doc, who frantically backstroked away from the ladder. Most of the boys can't sleep, Shade murmured as he circled to head off Doc, who was swimming for another ladder. And when they do, they wake up screaming. Even now, every time they shut their eyes, you're there with your needles and scalpels. Growing desperate, Doc swung the spear gun off his back. He side-stroked for the ledge again, aiming the gun with one hand. Take the shot, Shade taunted, opening his arms wide. It's the only chance you got. Ooh, it's getting even more intense. Will Doc get away? Will Shade get away? Are Ty's parents going to do something about him having a dark gift and take him back topside? What's gonna happen? Come back tomorrow and find out what happens next. I'll see you then. Be safe, be healthy, be kind to one another. See ya.